Jurassic World Evolution 3 is coming soon, and it brings a myriad of brand new and exciting features for all fans of the Jurassic franchise. But one of the new features stands above the rest, and that is none other than the adorable Juvenile Dinosaurs. This new game will feature both male and female dinosaurs, venturing away from the classic female-only Jurassic Park theme to show us that these dinosaurs have truly begun to adapt to their new ecosystems and assimilate into the wild. With that, together, they are now able to have their own young, carrying on the next generation of dinosaurs without life having to find a way. This will provide a new level of challenge to all of us park managers. Whether we're old-time vets or brand new at the game, the adolescents will show us a different side to the dinosaurs that we haven't seen before. While you may think that they'd simply be small mirrors of the adults, you'd be sorely mistaken. Dinosaurs changed as they grew, growing into themselves much like many animals do today, like puppies whose paws are far too large for their body. So what can we expect from these new juvenile dinosaurs? What kind of behaviors and features separate them from their parents, aside from being more adorable, that is? One dinosaur that is incredibly well known is none other than the mighty Tyrannosaurus Rex. Jurassic World is no stranger to these powerful beasts, but since the second film in the original series, baby Rexes haven't been seen. But these rambunctious little predators are back with style, boasting many of the same adorable features we remember from the previous film. Tyrannosaurus Rex actually has a somewhat decent amount known about its juvenile form compared to other dinosaurs, which can give us a better idea of what these creatures behaved or looked like before we get our hands on them. Of course, juvenile tyrannosaurs would start small, no more than a couple feet or under a meter in length when they first emerged from their egg. In life, they would have likely emerged with a coat of soft, downy feathers for their early stage of life, allowing these young animals to help regulate their body temperature. Young tyrannosaurs would likely play fight with each other, much in the same way that wolves or other similar creatures do, allowing them to test and hone their hunting skills with much less risk to themselves. They would likely be incredibly curious creatures, learning about their environment and their daily challenges and testing what they can and can't eat. While no direct evidence exists that tyrannosaurs cared for their young like many modern birds do, there has been some speculation that there would be at least some form of parental care. Adult tyrannosaurs often die within 6 or so years of reaching full maturity, aside from some notable individuals like Sue. Because of that, it would make the most sense if during those last years of their lives they were raising the next generation, teaching them how to hunt and survive all on their own. The juveniles would face a plethora of challenges themselves, even without their parents around, and those that survive would become hardened hunters, honed by their parents' skills and their harsh upbringing. That being said, there is debate on how long the parents would have cared for the young, if they did at all, and there has been proposed that rather than full-on pack hunting, Rexes might have hunted as small family units, meaning that the young may have stuck with their parents even after they began to grow. How this dynamic would work, though, is sort of unclear. Some have proposed that the young animals would drive prey into a trap of sorts, but that level of coordination and cooperation has never been recorded in any dinosaur, let alone Tyrannosaurus Rex. On top of that, juvenile tyrannosaurs occupied an entirely different niche than their adult counterparts, fulfilling a mid-sized predator role that may have been absent from their ecosystem. With that in mind, them sticking around to form a pack with their parents might be less likely, though it's still a mystery and up for debate. Either way, a juvenile tyrannosaur was still certainly a capable animal all on its own. Until around the age of 12, these young tyrannosaurs were built differently from their parents. Their legs are proportionally longer, their teeth were less robust, and they were much lighter and faster. They were also more adorable, don't forget that. As I mentioned, this puts them in an entirely different niche than their adult counterparts. Juvenile Rexes weren't hunting the giants of their era, the Triceratops or Ankylosaurus. Instead, these fleet-footed juveniles would have hunted equally fast prey like the speedy ornithomimids or the dome-headed Pachycephalosaurus. These would have been large enough to make a meal, but smaller than what they'd take on later in life, allowing them to not directly compete with the adults as they completed their growth. They still got rather large, but they wouldn't exceed 4,000 pounds, around 1,800 kilograms, until they reached their teenage years. This still puts them well above most of their prey in weight class, allowing them a wide variety to choose from. In my opinion, cooperation was probably far more likely amongst youngsters like these before they split off from one another and really began bulking up to reach their adult size. Something else interesting about these youngsters is that they could likely stifle themselves, for lack of a better term. A study from 2020 suggested that young tyrannosaurs could slow their growth rate depending on the abundance of resources in their given environment. Less food in their environment meant they forced themselves to grow more slowly, allowing them to survive where others would be forced to hunt and sustain themselves or simply perish. This unique adaptation would again reduce competition between adults and juveniles, allowing them to grow as needed to give them the best chance of survival. To take care of these animals properly, you'll need to give them access to plenty of space for their quick and sporadic movements. A juvenile tyrannosaur will grow into the enclosure until they become true tyrants, just like their parents. These playful beasts will need to hone their skills, and like their parents, a larger enclosure might just do the trick to ensure their happiness and prowess. These are feisty animals, and they could pose a significant danger to guests because of their preferred prey compared to the adults, as their niche would allow them to chase down smaller, faster prey like us. As young animals, they were likely far more social than their parents, and would likely be able to stay with them into adulthood so long as you don't overcrowd and the resources are available in your park or sanctuary. As you can see, these young predators aren't just a one-to-one foil of their adult counterparts, they're unique and intriguing animals in themselves. Their behaviors differ strongly from their parents, and I believe this will give them a unique flair among the juvenile dinosaurs that you'll soon be able to add to your own park or sanctuary. But they aren't alone. All the dinosaurs are getting their own juveniles, and that includes none other than the rival of the Rex itself, Triceratops. Triceratops are honestly brilliant animals. They were like the rhinos before rhinos. Jurassic World has shown us these adorable juveniles before in the Jurassic World petting zoo in the first movie, and there was supposed to be one in the original 1993 film, but it was unfortunately cut. Where T-Rex was almost an entirely different animal before reaching its growth spurt, Triceratops was far more consistent. Their frills were made out of a type of bone material known as metaplastic bone. This allowed it to stretch and reshape as the animal aged, growing and strengthening the frill over time. It would likely be a transition you could watch as the animal grew up, seeing the frill expand as the animal itself packed on size. In fact, because of that, there is an incredible display of variation between Triceratops skulls, so much so that in the past it's been debated whether or not they were the same as Torosaurus. These days, however, we know more, and because of that, most of this variety has begun to fall in line with the different stages of growth, showing us a true transition as this animal aged. Like I said earlier, unlike T-Rex, who has a sporadic growth rate that can change at almost any time, Triceratops was likely far more consistent. While an in-depth study of their growth rate hasn't been conducted, the few estimates we do have place their growth between 6 to 10 years depending on the individual and their environment. During this growth time, like many modern herbivores, Triceratops would spend most of its free time eating. Another thing to note is that historically, we are all used to seeing vast herds of Triceratops in some form or another in media, and unfortunately, that's not entirely the case. Based on Triceratops fossils, these guys are not as social as we once thought. Triceratops appear to be mainly individualistic, found on their own rather than with a social group, though there are a few notable exceptions. Those examples include a small group of juveniles that were found together, as well as what appears to be a small family unit. No herd means these relatively slow animals could move faster, no longer bogged down by a large group, and they're no longer competing directly for possible resources since they're not around each other as often. Some folks have suggested that these animals may have existed in elephant-like herds, with small groups of females and youngsters led by a matriarch and large lone males who only come around for mating season or other rare occasions. If that's the case, young Triceratops likely spent a significant amount of time with other juveniles, which would allow them to learn the social cues and sounds of their genus and practice for the challenges ahead. A young Triceratops is not like a young Rex, and it would certainly need some form of parental care for its earliest years so it could grow undeterred and pick up skills from its parents and siblings along the way. These herbivores require a lot of resources, and that makes huge herds far less likely. Even so, they did niche partition themselves by having a different type of teeth, reducing competition with the abundant hadrosaurs of the area like Edmontosaurus. Even as juveniles, these animals had what are known as dental batteries. These were compact and densely packed teeth, perfect for grinding up tougher or fibrous plant material. An adult Triceratops would likely need to eat around 100 pounds of vegetation daily, and the young wouldn't need to eat that much right away, but they'd need to eat more and more to achieve their full size in about 6 years or so. Males took longer to achieve full size as they could grow quite a bit larger, topping out over 8 tons and once again rivaling their main opponent, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. To take care of these animals, you'll need to make sure you don't overcrowd them, as they can be quite defensive, just like many modern bulky herbivores. A small family unit would excel in a multi-species enclosure, or a couple families if you want just an individual animal enclosure. They will require an abundance of tougher plant material alongside a wide area to forage and feed from. These animals are far more than just a handful, and they will require tough enclosures to match their physique. These adorable juveniles will also be included in the upcoming petting zoo, allowing your guests to get a much more close and personal experience with these three-horned wonders. They have a much more classical growth rate, but that doesn't detract from them. No, instead it shows us that the growth of some animals mirror those who are still alive today, and show us that some strategies can just work if you're prepared. These new juvenile Triceratops will be a treat to watch grow up into the fearsome tank of an animal that we all know and love. In the opposite lane from those bulky beasts is the lethal and gracile Velociraptors, and the Jurassic Park variation are rather curious creatures. We've seen or heard of some of their behavior directly from the films, because as Muldoon mentioned in the first film, they were lethal predators at only 8 months of age. And we also see in Jurassic World that, aside from Blue, the other raptors displayed aggression as youngsters, which sets them apart. For that reason, we'll talk about babies from both the real version and the Jurassic Park version. In the Jurassic franchise, the raptors start out fairly small, around the size of a small bird, before they begin to grow relatively rapidly. In the first Jurassic Park film, Hammond also mentioned that the raptors imprint on the first creature that they see. We see this with Owen as well, imprinting on the raptor squad when they were first born. These raptors are fiercely intelligent creatures, said to be even smarter than primates like the chimpanzee. They gain social skills by developing together with their siblings, play fighting amongst each other as youngsters before reaching adulthood and fighting amongst themselves for dominance. While the play fights amongst youngsters may look cute and cuddly, the big one showed us that a battle of dominance among raptors can quickly turn lethal. Despite that, the social skills they develop as youngsters allows them to be incredibly efficient predators, working in tandem and able to communicate and coordinate with one another. By the time they could hunt for themselves, they likely already established a pecking order, hopefully reducing the dominance displays between them. In the films, the raptors are highly parental animals. The raptors from Isla Sorna hunted the humans across the entire island to retrieve their stolen eggs from Billy, showing incredible determination to hatch the next generation. Blue herself shows us that these animals take care of their young as well, hunting for them and protecting them at all costs. They are fiercely defensive of their young, an admirable trait for such a terrifying predator, though it would allow their young to develop in relative safety. How long this parental care goes, though, is unclear. Jurassic World Dominion doesn't make its timeline super clear in terms of days, weeks, months, etc. My best guess is that Beta at most is around 6 months old. Blue seems determined to not only take care of Beta, but also teach her how to hunt and give her the necessary skills and perhaps even form a pack with her. And this implies that the raptors cared for their offspring for more than 6 months, perhaps even up to 2 years, before the offspring could go off on its own or maybe just join its mother's pack. As for the real Velociraptor, unfortunately, we know far less when it comes to their offspring. From what I could find, there was only a single juvenile Velociraptor specimen that's ever been found, and it still hasn't had a fully dedicated study yet, though the authors have promised one in the future. As you likely know by now, the real Velociraptor was a rather small animal, reaching a maximum of around 7 feet, a bit more than 2 meters long, and standing only about 1.5 to 2 feet tall, or about half a meter. Adults would be around the size of a particularly large turkey, and while that doesn't sound fearsome, they were still truly awesome predators. Juveniles may have hunted insects or other small creatures like lizards on a more regular basis, while adults would of course take slightly larger fare. As I mentioned earlier, pack hunting is a debated topic, and we still aren't entirely sure on that, so it was likely limited in the real Velociraptor, perhaps only a pair and maybe a couple extras. As such, the young animals would have likely been cared for quite some time to ensure growth and healthy hunters. To make up for those lack of numbers, real raptors likely employed a method of hunting known as the RPR, the raptor prey restraint models, where they would pounce onto their victim and use their wings and sickle claws to keep themselves stabilized, all while biting and clawing at vital areas to bring their target down. Juveniles would have likely trained themselves on this craft at a young age by various methods, like climbing trees or, again, play fighting with their siblings. Real Velociraptors were likely smart animals too, though perhaps not to the same degree as their film counterparts. As Maniraptoran dinosaurs, they are among the family that is closest related to the birds, and we all know that birds are among the smartest living creatures today. Crows themselves, for example, are comparable in intelligence to young humans. Velociraptor likely had some degree of intelligence, but exactly how far this goes is unclear. Perhaps this intelligence would allow them to bond to a certain degree with both parents or other youngsters. As adults, this might result in the former young splitting off on their own into small groups, or perhaps staying with the parents if there's enough resources and room. Many birds of comparable size to Velociraptor grow relatively quickly, so it's not unlikely that raptors could as well, perhaps achieving full adult growth in around 2 years or so. Hopefully, the new juvenile specimen will reveal more about these curious creatures once it receives its full description. Like the Tyrannosaurus, these guys might be too curious. These young raptors will likely poke and prod at various parts of their habitat, whether that be at fencing, food, or even employees, until they become adults, where this will become even more of an issue. However, as juveniles, they'll be easier to understand their behavior and get ahead of it before they reach adulthood. While they won't require as much room as, say, the Tyrannosaur or Triceratops, a larger area with plenty of ground cover could make the juveniles feel right at home, protected amongst the brush from what could be prying predators. They'll need siblings to grow alongside, to hone and perfect their social skills and hunting techniques. These animals are notorious cage breakers, and a smaller one might give you the slip more easily than an adult. Proceed with caution, but make sure you're taking brilliant care of these adorable little carnivores. Each of these young dinosaurs will introduce you to new challenges and requirements that are likely not seen in the adults, which may pave the way for new and interesting enclosures or features that will make handling these young critters far more interactive. We know that this new game will launch with a multitude of features that weren't seen in the previous one, like expanded terrain tools that allow us to tweak our enclosures to exactly what our juvenile dinosaurs need. The game is shaping up to be absolutely brilliant. I cannot contain my excitement, and I look forward to playing it myself. The game will be released on October 21st, and you can pre-order or wishlist it now using the link in the description below. Life finds a way in Jurassic World Evolution 3. Thank you all for watching, folks. I appreciate each and every one of you for joining me here today. How excited are you for the new Jurassic World Evolution 3? Let me know in the comments below, but until next time, make sure to be good people, drink plenty of water, and have a fantastic day.